After installing SureCart on your website, you get this lovely auto-generated shop page from the SureCart team. Only problem is, it's not built in Bricks. As a Bricks user, you want access to all those lovely tools. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to rebuild everything in Bricks. Oh, I almost forgot to say, I created a template, I put it on my website. If you want to download it, there's a link below. You can skip watching this whole video if you really don't care about learning. All right. Now I'm going to be using a template instead of just modifying the shop page. And to better explain why I'm doing that, I just want to show you that when you create a collection of some kind, it's going to be creating an archive page for you, which out of the box is not styled. Now, even if you are not going to be linking to these archive pages, they're still going to be potentially showing up in your sitemap. And honestly, it's kind of a free page. You might as well have Google decide to randomly rank it. I made the mistake in the past of not editing these pages on a different website. Google decided to rank that page and it looked like crap. So let's make sure we take care of that at the same time. So we're going to go into our Bricks templates, and I'm going to go into my little, this is happy file, so I'm going to go into my archive and add a new template in that folder. It's going to be my collection and shop. I am going to go and select the template type, which is, not surprising, the SureCart collection archive. Now I know this is going to overwrite your shop page, but using this archive template type is going to work just fine. So we're going to publish and edit with Bricks. First thing we're going to do is go into our settings, template settings. I'm just going to make this a little bigger for you. Conditions, add a condition. And the first is archive, categories and tags, and we're going to select collections. That'll take care of our archive pages. But honestly, most of the time, I think just the shop page is what you're going to want. You can have this condition as well. So this is a way to have just one source of truth. When you modify your shop page, it's going to also modify your archives. You don't have to worry about doing things twice. Even if you accidentally start modifying on an individual ID level instead of a class level, it happens, we're human. You're not going to have to worry about something breaking elsewhere in your site. So we're just going to choose individual and shop. And just to confirm everything's working, I'm going to throw a little section in here with a heading. And for that heading, I'm just going to call it shop for now. Give it an H1, save. And now when I go to my shop and refresh, there you go. We can see that that has rewritten properly. And same for my collection page, also says shop. That's the first thing we're going to fix up. I'm actually going to duplicate my headings. Now obviously we have two H1s, never do that. We're going to add some dynamic data here, which is going to be our post title, and just say collection. So post title on an archive page is the name of the collection types. So in my case, I have pastries and drinks. So this is going to actually say pastries collection, drinks collection. And I'm going to add some conditions to hide one or the other depending on where we are. So the first one is going to be post ID. And I'm going to want to go and get this post ID. If I go into the page, you can see in my URL, I get that post ID up here, which is 319. So I'm going to put that in there. And I'm just going to copy the conditions like this by right-clicking and paste them by right-clicking again. Except in the second one, I obviously want to say is not equal. And there you go. I'm just going to call this my shop heading here and archive heading.
just to stay organized in the case that I need to come back to these at some point. When I go and check out my shop page now, you'll notice that the shop page says shop, but when I go to the pastries collection, it's going to say pastries collection. So we're all set. Just before we get into the fun stuff, I am going to bring us back to some more settings because settings are fun, right? We're actually going to go into SureCart, and you'll notice that there's a shop uh, link here. If I go here, it's going to bring me here. It's not necessarily a useful space for me to have. I personally think it's better to clean that up and remove it. So we can do that by going to the SureCart settings. We go to advanced, and within advanced, we just turn off admin appearance, the shop page here. We save that. And when I give that a little refresh, you'll now see that the shop page is no longer showing up in SureCart, which means you're not going to go into that page and start editing it and notice nothing changes. So I think it's a bit of a better way to go about that. Just a side note, in the pages, you will see that you still have the shop page here, obviously, and this is still going to show up. You might even be tempted to click edit with bricks, but we're really working from a template. So when you go into this edit with bricks, you're going to have no structure, but you're still going to see what appears due to your template. Can be a little bit confusing. If you want, you could even leave yourself a little note, maybe delete this shop here and just leave yourself a note here that says edit this page from bricks archive template. This isn't going to take much space in your database, and if somebody else comes on to take over your website, they'll have a better sense of where to go fix this stuff up. I'm actually going to save that like this. Don't worry, that will not show up on the page itself. All right, now we get to have some fun. So first thing I'm going to do is get myself a grid container, which is going to be my product grid. And within this product grid, I'm going to go and add the SureCart product card, which you'll see here. And I'm going to want to loop over this product card, except when you go in there, you'll notice there's no way to query. So the reason why this is the product card element is actually a form element, which is why buttons like the add to cart button, buy now button are going to function. It's pulling in data, which I will show you how to make use of in various ways in future videos. But for now, just know that this is a form, and if we want to make a query, we're going to have to wrap that in a div element. And I'm going to call this my product query. That way I know exactly what the query loop is beside it. Activate my query loop, choose type post, and the post type is SureCart product. And there you go. Now I have giant cards. A little accessibility issue to handle first. We currently have a bunch of cards. They are technically list items that should be within a unordered list. So we're going to put that tag on our grid. And the card we're going to add as a list item. And if you want to keep track of these things, you can rename just to make sure that you see those. This is a trick I actually saw took from Kevin Geary. And now I know that I've properly labeled these things. This is obviously going to add some padding that I don't necessarily want. So I'm going to go into here, make that 0. On the list item, you will notice that the display is list item. You can change that to a block. That will remove all the list styling. But I think it's also useful to remove the list styling within here as well. So just custom CSS, list style, none. And the reason why I'm doing this, even though it's not list items, so I don't have bullet points already, is going to be for our no product template that we'll see later on. So we'll just do this and we're set here. If you're familiar with creating responsive grids already, you can just skip over to the next section. But I'm going to go over a little bit of CSS for those who are a bit unfamiliar. So I'm going to take my product grid here. I'm going to change this into a grid display. I'm just going to toss a grid gap variable that I have here. For the grid template columns, I'm going to use a repeat function. The way a repeat function works is you have repeat, number of columns, width. For the number of columns, I'm going to use a property called autofill. Now what autofill does is it's going to take the width that I've selected and try to create as many columns as possible with that width. So if I was to say 250 pixels, it will create as many columns of 250 pixels as it can fit. But what that's going to do is leave whatever little gaps at the end, and here it might not be so obvious until I make this bigger, you'll see that this gap here is not 250 pixels. So I want each of these columns to actually expand the same amount to fill in that gap. So I'm going to use another function within this called min-max and give it a value of 1fr. So min-max is going to have a minimum size of 250 pixels and a maximum of 1fr, or 1 fraction. And just like that, we have a fully responsive design. Let me show you how this works. So if it can fit 4 columns, it'll do 4 columns. Now I've reached the max container width, but I can come back down. Only 3, 2, 1. So it's fully responsive. One line of CSS. Isn't that lovely? I also personally like for all of my rows to be the same height, so I will put 1fr for the rows, and now they will always be the same height as one from the other. All right, great. Our shop is looking good. So fast, right? We only have 5 items now, but in the future, I'm going to want to keep adding items, so I'm also going to need some pagination. I'm going to add another container just below. You don't want to put your pagination within the UL, the unordered list. That's going to confuse screen readers. So I'm going to put this in the container just below and add pagination. And now you're going to see that it's lovely to have things labeled properly because I can clearly see this is a product query. Select product query. And we're just going to enable Ajax here. This means your page doesn't have to reload. It's a bit of a cleaner, less frantic experience, I will say, to the user. They just have the items reload when they do pagination, as opposed to having like the entire page like blink at them. Especially if you have a slower server, that could be a bit of a rough experience. So let's enable Ajax. And just to confirm that things are working, I'm going to go up into my query loop and I'm going to just set the maximum to be 3 posts or 4. I'm going to save that, go back to my shop page, et voila. Now we have little pagination. We're like halfway there. I mean, short of styling, so probably not halfway there, but keep going. So next up, we're going to handle this order by element. We're going to handle the taxonomy sorting, collection sorting, and the search bar. Before we jump into all of those things, you're going to want to go and make sure that's actually turned on in Bricks. So you'll go to your settings, the general tab, and you're going to go on to turn on your enable query sort filter live search and your custom fields integration. It's possible you don't see custom fields integration yet. Just turn on the first one, save, refresh the page, and it should be there. At the moment, it's only ACF and MetaBox. If you're using something else, sorry, maybe it's going to be covered in the future. And with that out of our way, let's go back to our template. I'm going to put those filters into my top container here, which I'm going to call my title and filters. And within this, I'm going to add a little block, which is going to be my filters wrapper. Within that, I'm going to just give this a quick little class. I actually want this to be a grid as well. The way I'm designing things is to line up my filters with my product cards just to add some consistency. I am by no means a good designer though, so feel free to absolutely ignore what I'm doing design-wise. And again, I'm just going to use that repeat, autofill, min-max, 250 pixels, and 1 FR. Now, I've kind of caught myself here. I'm trying to match things and keep them consistent, but I've magic numbered my 250 pixels here. If ever I decide that's actually not a wide enough card, I'm going to run into an issue where I might forget to change it in one place or another. So I'm going to take this opportunity to create a variable at the section level that I can access in both. So I'm going to call this card width and set it to 250 pixels. Coming back to my filters wrapper, I'm going to change this to be a variable of card width. I'm just going to copy that and put it in my grid as well. So now I have one place I can just change the card width and it's going to adjust everything for me. I don't have to think about that again. We like not thinking. Thinking is hard. Okay, let's go and add our first sorting element. So we're going to put in a filter, and it is the filter select. I'm going to choose my query, which is a product card. The URL parameter is going to show up in the URL after you've done a filter or a order. And for this one, I'm going to call it order by. You don't need to overthink these things too much. Honestly, it's just to give you a little bit of information, a little bit of understanding when you're looking at those URLs later on. I'm going to leave this on input, and the action is going to be sort. Now, the first few are quite easy. So for latest, we're going to choose the published date. Side note, in SureCart products, instead of making it published on, they have this cataloged at. They just changed the name, but it's the same thing. And we're going to leave this as descending. Latest dates are the biggest numbers. And we're set for that one. I'm personally going to skip organizing it by the oldest products. I find it hard to believe that many customers and users are going to want that. So I'm going to skip right ahead to alphabetical and spell things properly. A to Z. Here the source is going to be the post title. Ascending, easy enough. Alphabetical, Z to A. Again, post title and descending. We're just going to save this and go and check it out on the front end. Latest. Now that's the default. I've also got this as select sort. I'm going to go back and change that. A to Z, it's going to put my numbers first. That seems to be working just fine. And Z to A. Perfect. So I'm just going to go and make sure that the placeholder here says order by. Okay, next filter. This is where we start getting into meta values that are beyond sort of the built-in WordPress stuff. So this is going to be our price, low to high. And you have two options for meta value. You can go with just pure meta value or meta numeric value. If you use meta value, something that costs $10 will be placed before something that costs $2 because it's only looking at the first digit at a time. It's reading it like a string. So we're going to want to choose numeric value so that the amounts are properly compared. For the meta key, we have two values. We have the min price amount, and you also have the max price amount. Don't put both in here. I'm just putting them side by side so you can see them. I think it makes a lot more sense to do min price amount. This is the minimum price. And do keep in mind that this does not mean it's the price that we see displayed. The price you see displayed is whatever your first price is in your SureCart products. So I think just for consistency's sake, again, make your minimum price be the display price. That way, when people organize it low to high, and then they see the numbers, the prices of things, it makes sense as opposed to seeing prices that are higher and then go lower and then go higher. They'll get confused, think they've filtered things wrong. So we're going to do minimum price amount. I'm just going to duplicate this because that's easier and go high to low and leave this as is with the order changed to descending. I'm going to save. We'll go to the front end and we go low to high and see this is what I mean here. So I've set the display amount to be a higher number than what the minimum amount is. If I go into this, there actually is a price without biscuit size regular, which is $4, as opposed to with biscuit, which is this is my display price at the moment. So do make sure at this point I would go into my product, make sure to fix this up to be the $4. Now this will be my display amount, and I just need to confirm that everything is properly priced here. We're good. Now it makes a lot more sense for any users using my page. High to low, just to confirm. Again, we're going with the minimum price. So you saw that my anti-gravity product had a price of 15, but that is the max amount, not the min amount. And that's it for our sorting. All right, next up. Before I actually go to the next one, I'm going to call this my sort by element. And now I'm going to add my next one, which is also a filter. The SureCart default uses two select elements. I'm going to use a checkbox just to show you something a little bit different, be a little less repetitive. And this is going to be my filter collections. Great. We're going to choose the same target query. I'm going to say collection as my URL parameter. And the source is going to be taxonomy. Within taxonomy, I'm going to choose collections, SureCart product. I'm going to order by name. You can order it by the count if you want to show your products that have the collections that have the most amount of products first. For my particular case, name makes more sense. I'm going to also hide my count and hide empty collections. And finally, I'm going to turn these into buttons because I think it's prettier. I'm just going to take a quick moment to style those. And we should be set. You'll notice there's no buttons on the screen yet. You just need to hit Update Filter Index. It's going to refresh the page, and there they are. It's saved the page when it did that, so we can go and check it out on the front end. Drinks, pastries, just pastries. Works just fine. All right, we're getting along. Let's get the search element in here. So I'm going to go and type search.
you'll see that there are two search elements. This is going to be like a search your whole website kind of element. We want to use the filter search here. We'll add that in, select the right query, add the URL parameter of search. That's basically it. That's all I'm going to do. Now, I don't really like how this is being set up, so I'm going to change a couple little things here, and I'm going to add some classes on everything here, just so that I can use this later on. Uh, that's automatic CSS if you are unfamiliar with what I just did there, but essentially I've just added classes on everything. You absolutely don't need a CSS for that. I want my search element to always be in the first row and always to the furthest right. So I'm just going to go into the custom CSS, write grid column -1. So this will always stick it in the last column. Actually, I want this as, whoops, -2, sorry. So with grid column, you have a start and an end, and you can count backwards as I've just done here. So it will go the second last line of my columns and go all the way to the last line of my columns, aka the last column. So this works just fine. And I want to make sure that the grid row is always the first. The reason I'm doing that is because I actually want these collections to span 2 columns when I can. Because as you can see, if I start adding another collection here, it's going to start stacking. I don't really like the look of that. So I'm going to go like this, grid columns, and do a span of 2. And now when they don't fit into the middle, it's going to come down. But if I go on the front end, so you can see when there's 4 columns, it sits on the first row. When I come down to only 3 columns, it tries to span 2, doesn't fit in the middle, so it comes down and takes the space that it needs. Again, I'm not a design whiz, so don't necessarily trust my design skills, but I think this works. Only issue, I'm going to do another little CSS side quest. I actually want to make sure that when this gets really small, where there's only 1 row, it's not going to force the grid to create a column even though it doesn't fit. As you can see here, it does something a bit wonky. So I'm just going to add a little media query, which unfortunately cannot take the calc variables. So I do have to magic number this a little bit. I've checked beforehand, and 600 pixels is the correct width for myself. It appears to be angry at me. And just like that, it's going to check that the window is at least 600 pixels. When it's smaller than that, it's going to go and change the grid column to be a span of 1 instead of a span of 2. Just make sure that this is actually placed below. CSS is read in order. All right, so if I save that, I can show you how this looks. So if I shrink down, as soon as it gets to 1 column, it's going to be placed into its own row. I think that's everything for the filters. There's just one piece of information that's kind of missing, which is when I do change these, I'm not really given any information. I can't remove just one active filters. These are called active filters, and we're going to add that in next. Whoa, all right. Don't forget to stretch. Let's add another little block here. I'm going to add a wrapper. This is going to be my active filters wrapper. And within that, I'm going to add my active filters. You can search that up here. And we're just going to select the target query. And I'm going to add a little SVG just so that we have a little X. I do recommend you use your own uploaded SVGs as opposed to using these, because as soon as you use one of these Font Awesome, it kind of loads the entire library onto the page. It can slow down your page more than you would expect. So do upload like the individual 1, 2, or 3 SVGs you might use on a page. I'm just going to change this to be 1 rem, realizing I'm missing a class. And again, I want this to have its own row. So I'm going to say start from the beginning and go all the way to the end. That way it will bring itself down to its own row. But within these active filters, I'm going to also add a reset. So this is a filter reset. Filter reset. And you just need to select the query, of course, and change the action to be reset. And I like to hide it when there is no active filter. Realizing this is stacked, I would prefer that this be a flex. Whoops. Sideways, perfect. And call this reset filter. And I'm just going to change that to be my secondary. Now, this has done something, but these active filters, I guess I will show you how that looks first. You can see we have price low to high, we have my drinks, so you can remove your filters one by one, and you get a bit of a better sense of what's going on. If I write coffee here, so I can see all my filters, but there's a bit of missing information. Coffee. Coffee what? Drinks. Drinks what? Like what are these things? So we need to go and add some prefixes to our active filters. We'll actually go and select the filter itself, and you'll notice an active filter row here. So we can go and add here. This is going to be order or whatever prefix makes sense to you. I'm going to go into my collections filter and add collection. And in the search, I'm going to add the prefix of search. Obviously, you can use whatever you would like to do there. Just going to save that and refresh. And there you go, ordered by collection. You'll notice I missed a little space there, and that's fine. Now, I will notice that I don't actually want to be in an archive page and then have my collection filters. For me, that doesn't make that much sense. I'm going to choose the conditions that were on that shop heading. I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to go and slap those onto my filters, just like that. There we go. Now in my archive page, there is no more filters. But in the shop page, they're still there. Fantastic. All right, we're done, right? No, we're not done. There's one more thing we have to do. You'll notice that if I choose some filters, I get down to some things, and then I start looking for something that does not exist. No products, and also no feedback. So we're gonna have to fix this up. We're gonna go back to our template, and we're actually gonna choose the query. Get out of conditions here. So in the query, we have two options for no results. One is just a little text element. No products match these filters. So we can just do a little text like that, just so that you can see no product matches these filters. It's all right. It's not great. There's a better way to do this. We're actually going to go to the back end, come to our templates, and I've actually already created the template just to save a bit of time. I've saved it in my miscellaneous folder, and here it is. No products result, or some other descriptive name.
give it a template type of section. Don't be confused by the search results template here. When we go inside, I've literally just got a block with some text. You can change this to be a section, container, whatever you want to do. It's bricks. Build your own thing, right? So when I come back here to my query, I can remove this text. And in my template, I can choose the no product result template. When I save, I come back to my shop where I had no products, refresh. Ah, isn't this prettier? Takes up a little more space, catches your eye, and I'm not searching for products that are maybe not loading because let's be honest, a lot of the web is poorly done. So users might assume the site is crashing instead of assuming there's no products for their search. So do make sure to take care of that. All right, now we're done. So not only do we have our shop page all done up, we have all of our collection pages from now until eternity. They're all set up for us. We obviously have only set up the bare bones. As far as styling goes, that's up to you. My name is Dawson Woods, so I hope I haven't created too much confusion. You were able to follow along. Obviously, ask your questions in the comments, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.